Like, what was it called?
I know what you're talking about. I've
Yeah,
heard nothing but bad things about it.
Oh, the
Megatropolis.
Megatropolis.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've had it saved up.
It's gonna go down as one of the biggest flops of all time. He spent like Yeah, he spent like $120 million of his own money, and it only grossed like $6 or $7 million. Hey Sam, are you there?
Yeah.
Is there any chance that I could put in a good word for Clipper and have you unblock her? She, like me, would not. If you don't want her to speak to you anymore or anything, whatever she did to piss you off, she would agree to stop and not do it again.
She went to my Facebook page and was like taking shit on my Facebook page and using it to insult me, which is like a weird thing to do, to try to like find me in real life and try to find dirt on me to insult me. Like, that's a crazy thing to do, bro.
So, I agree.
And like, Bill,
okay.
I'll be honest with you, like, I really didn't enjoy how I was treated in the PNR room when I asked Tom to take down the video and everyone was ganging up on me and being mean to me. And I like have a pretty big beef with all of you, but like, I don't know, we've been chill lately, so like I don't care. But like, just let you know that like I haven't forgotten that I thought that was like really not a cool interaction. I didn't say, hey Tom, fuck you. I said, hey, I would appreciate this because people are trying to dox me. Can you take the video down? And he was like, no. And I really think about it.
Well, look, I will keep my word, and there will be nothing out of my mouth negative towards you. I won't have no problem with you, Sam. So I hope we can keep us on good terms.
Word. I feel you, dog.
I heard you got in a big fight with Venus today.
Yeah. Well, it was more just yeah, I guess so. I mean, the title of my room is Conversational Micro Insults because Venus likes to do that. And I don't have like a good canned response to how to handle someone doing that. Like, the thing that Sully suggests I do is just have a thicker skin. But that doesn't feel totally satisfying to me.
It's hard, man. I know what you mean. That's why I try my best to stay out. Like, I've been on these apps for like 3 or 4 years now, and I don't debate or anything, but I just try to engage in the social stuff. I actually try my hardest not to fight with people because I couldn't do what you guys do. Fight with people all the time. It bothered me. I would prefer to get along with as many people as I could.
I think if you want to have thick skin, you basically have to have like a very advanced sense of humor, because a lot of people will drop out because they're not able to just let it brush off their shoulders and laugh it off. They take everything too seriously, and thus they shut down and no longer continue. They stop. But it's mostly because they take it so personally. They take the insult so personally. They're not able to essentially uh, let it go, just let it and just listen. I mean, it's I've been through the military process and I've seen guys drop out that you would never think they're going to drop out because they're so tough, but mentally they just get so frustrated and anger, they ring the bell and say, I have to stop, I can't do this anymore. But it's really just an emotional inability to let it go.
I can get Bill to debate me. Hey Bill, I think comics are stupid.
You're wrong, Deepak.
Hey,
You're so wrong.
Yeah, debate me, bro.
I think I have been challenged to a debate on comics before, Deepak.
That might be one you have to take up, Bill. I mean, you probably win it. There's knowledge.
Jason Tone and I had a semi-debate the other day on a porn star's ass. And
sounds illuminating.
A couple of people told me that I did well enough that I got a gold star. So I'm proud of that. But it wasn't a real debate. We were just going back and forth. But he didn't know who this girl was, and she's basically like she won the AVN award 7 times in a row, and in the 2010s for best ass. And he was saying that she didn't have a good ass, so I just kept hitting him with all these different awards that he had won for having the best ass. So it was fun.
Is that Alexis, Texas?
That's correct, Deepak.
Yeah, baby.
It
I see
started
you're a
because
connoisseur, Deepak.
it started because
Alexis, Texas.
I live next to the Speedway 500 track, and the strip clubs up here. When the Indy 500 comes, they try to like get like some semi-famous people to come and dance because there's all these crowds up here. So I was driving past one of the strip clubs last week, and I saw that they're going to have Alexis, Texas, for the Indy 500 this year, and then it devolved into a debate about her ass, and I think I brought the goods. Won that debate.
Deepak, I just want to say that I completely 100% believe that your atheism is intellectual.
Wow.
But I want to say that if you are my friend and I know that you like me, you can insult me pretty intensely, and I think it's pretty funny. But I can tell when people like me. It's like not hard to tell. So, like, if you like me, you can get away with a lot of insults from me. But
Was that in context?
before you came in the room, we're talking about having a thin skin and how to handle conversational micro insults and whether going to thick skin is good and blah 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 blah.
Wait, were people were arguing it's not good to have a thick skin?
Oh no, Sully thinks that having a thick skin is like the proper way to handle conversational micro
Well,
insults.
to be clear, I don't think I used that phrase, but the phrase I would use is something similar, which is basically like stop giving so much of a fuck or don't take it so seriously. I mean, sometimes obviously it's not like a critique where it's like, oh, you must be perfect and never get upset at people. It's just that like you try not to take it so seriously.
Why so serious?
Now, Bill, as far as like asses and porn go, right, there's something to be said for like your Mia Malkova or.
That's right.
Or you could go all the way to the other end, right? Like you have your. You of course you always have what's her name, Gianna Michael.
Yep.
And then what's her name? Isn't there someone? Isn't there one like Maserati? Isn't that like on the far end of her?
I don't recognize that one, but Christina Rose had an amazing ass for a while.
Oh, right.
She's getting older now. Yeah. But yeah, I know. Mia Malkova. She still looks pretty good. She's doing OnlyFans now.
No, Bill.
Go ahead.
Was the debate about the quality of the ass, or was it about empirical facts about the ass?
Well, he was just claiming that it wasn't that good. Like I was telling him that she's known for having for years he had the best ass, one of the best ass baby on earth, and he just wouldn't accept it, or he just. And I was even sending him pictures of her in her prime. He's like, nah, not really. So I had to break out the facts. She literally has an award-winning ass for an entire decade. Best ass.
See, Sam's problem is that he doesn't think there are any objective facts about which is the best ass or not, right? He looks that independent. But I think Ethan, you might be able to persuade him otherwise. Oh, you got.
See, I'm an ass man. I don't know why anybody would actually prefer huge tits to a great ass. I mean, the core is, the birthing factory, and that ass is tied to those hips, to those thighs. And, if you're going to essentially be a breast man and not an ass man, I would say you have a tendency to be a microaggressionist.
Well, I just realized, by almost by definition, there cannot be any stance-independent facts about who has the best ass. See what I mean? Stance independent. No. women's ass.
No, I think, it's easy to determine great asses versus mediocre asses. I mean, I think there's definitely a mathematical equation to a woman's ass. I mean, it's 100% what is it? Not Pareto's principle, Fibonacci sequence. It's a curve, so it resembles the universe, the spiral nebula.
Whoa, I'm a mod.
Deepak, what's your best advice for dealing with conversational micro insults?
Enlarge them until they become macro insults. Pistols are done. That always works.
My phone died. Did Ethan, with his objective knowledge of aesthetics, he tell you which ass was the correct ass, or did he?
You missed my joke. You may repeat it. My joke is that almost by definition, there cannot be any stance-independent facts about what is the best ass. You get it? Stance-independent. Yeah.
Deepak is really proud of that one.
Yeah.
He's been like heckling the audience for laughs.
It combines my two
You
favorite
not
aspects of
entertained?
atheism. Wait, it combines my two favorite aspects of atheism, like porn and moral anti-hero.
Also, I hate New York so much. It's unbelievable.
Are you in New York right now, bro?
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to come stop by? You want to hang?
Well, where are you? Are you near Midtown?
I'm in Brooklyn, but it's just the L train away. Just go to the Morgan stop and we can chill.
I get lost here.
Just hit the L train. I'm like right off the L train, and also I have a bed you can crash it for free if you need.
You're
Okay,
guiding
so
all the
thanks, bro.
Calvinist assassins straight to you, Stan.
I mean, I'm in New York all the time, so we actually should hang out for sure. I have to get up for class at 9 a.m. tomorrow, though, so I think I'm going to go back.
Word.
But no, I'm over here all the time. Because there's like, for instance, there's a class at NYU that I'm sitting in on this semester, so I'm here, like, every week,
Nice.
It's pretty dope. New York is a fun place.
I don't know, I had never been to Princeton's campus before, and I went the other day, and it was the most beautiful, like, idyllic, nice place to be, where you just, like, I felt smarter being there, and then you go to New York, and it's like everything is so loud and grimy, and, like, everything is so claustrophobic, and it kind of feels suffocating for me, like, I wouldn't want to live here long term,
Have you been to Oxford, Ethan?
No, never. I mean, I think I visited, like, when I was a little kid and we were in England, but I have almost no recollection of it.
People tell me it's like the platonic ideal of like the perfect academic environment in terms of like beauty and smart people and stuff.
It really is. I mean, I don't know about the smart people part necessarily, but it's beautiful.
Wait, have you been to Princeton though, Deepak? Do you know what it's like?
Yes, Princeton. Yeah, Princeton comes close. But I like Oxford. I mean, partly I guess also because like it's older, right? But
Yeah, I mean, I just like Princeton better. I think because it's in the U.S. and we have air conditioning, and it's like close by to civilization.
I mean,
And obviously, Oxford is under Sharia law now.
Obviously.
So don't.
Yo, Ethan, I have a question for you. I value courage, loyalty, and curiosity in people. But I also am those things. And, like, what a coincidence that the things that I value are the things that I am. And, like, how do I have, like, a non-self-serving, like, I don't know, like, standard of values that I use to judge people that isn't just like totally self-serving, or like is this inevitable?
I mean, I don't know. First, I think those things are things that basically everybody values to a certain extent, maybe to a greater extent, maybe to a lesser extent. But I think you can take comfort in the fact that basically everyone recognizes those as virtues, you know? Now, I don't know, like, obviously I think there's another tendency, besides just to value the attributes that you have more highly than the ones that you lack. There can be that bias. But I mean, there's also like a bias towards like self-flattery, you know, where just like we exaggerate the extent to which we have desirable qualities. Okay. Especially if it becomes part of our identity box that we have it to a greater extent than other people. But I mean, what? Sorry?
I'm more worried about the first one. So like, if everyone is just valuing to a higher degree the traits that they have, like, I don't know, are we just like, I don't know, is this inevitable? Is there a way to like escape this like consistent bias? Like, should we like reach consensus on the rank ordering of values, so we don't have to have everyone having this like fight over these self-serving battles over which values are the more important ones or something?
I mean, I don't think there's an issue there. Like, if it's just like look at the cardinal virtues, which, like, I think everyone can agree, basically, roughly, on what they are, with exceptions. And then basically, like, I guess there is like a habit that you have to cultivate, which is like to be self-critical and to recognize the things that you would like reflectively endorse as virtues that you're deficient in, you know, and to actually like point that out and then think about how to improve along that dimension. So I think that's probably helpful in counteracting the bias. I mean, I also think it's just like surrounding yourself with people that have a virtue that you lack, I think is good at compensating for this too. And like for instance, like something that I don't have at all is like patience. You know, I'm very impatient. And then when I see people that are very long suffering and very patient people, and people who can be like very conscientious and diligent, and like work on like things that I would think are boring or monotonous for long amounts of time, and like can put up with somebody, like basically can have self-control even when somebody's being obnoxious or dumb or whatever. Like just encountering that in person and having like a direct experience of it does, I think, make it more salient to me that I'm deficient in that, and that it's sort of important that I'm deficient in that.
Like, I have very little conscientiousness, and surprise, I don't value that much as a virtue. But like, clearly, it's like extremely important. But like, I don't know. I'm like, I don't judge other people for not being conscientious. I don't judge myself for not being conscientious. And like, as a result, I'm not that conscientious, and I also like feel smug, and I make me feel a little bit embarrassed that I'm doing that.
Yeah, but you're still young. You have years to improve yourself, and it's not stagnant. Your psychic or psychological development is just beginning. I mean, there's a whole chemical component to psychology, meaning if you do Shabbos and you do red wine, or you smoke some cannabis and you read all these books, the bigger your glossary or the more concepts you have, maybe the more conscientious you become, or, you know, humble or awe of just other people and variety, even microaggressions, where when somebody microaggresses, you're just like, wow, the world is so diverse. I've met another amazing, stupid person. It's unbelievable.
I mean, in terms of conscientiousness, like I think the thing, I mean, first is probably your biggest issue is you probably, I mean, do you have ADHD? Have you ever been diagnosed as having ADHD?
They're brutal.
And is it unmedicated?
It's medicated, but it's not enough.
So like it's like you've been taking Adderall for a long time or whatever, and you haven't titrated it?
I've been taking it for like 2 months now, And instead of using it to get shit done, I've been using it to like get better at Clubhouse debate. So
It's Clubhouse. I got Addy. See
Don't
what
judge me.
what you're
Oh,
doing.
like faster now? Oh,
but you don't want to waste. You don't want to waste this though.
Yeah.
Like
What?
when you first start doing Adderall, that's when you can actually start like establishing new habits, and the effect is only going to be like you're going to build a tolerance to it within like 2 years. And like the problem is that like people's perception that they're still getting a benefit lasts longer than like the measurable benefit that they get. But like the one thing that's really really useful for is like if you can take the Adderall and you can just develop workout habits with it, and then get some inertia in those habits. And like using the Adderall to reinforce like your first time using Adderall, using that to reinforce Clubhouse debate growing. Oh,
it's terrible. It's terrible for my life. But it's really fun. I mean, I don't think it's valueless what I'm doing on here. I'm making friends. I'm like sharpening my mind. But yeah, there shouldn't be.
well, no, I mean that's the thing. Is just like, look, you're gonna crash probably if you're taking Adderall. And are you extended release?
Dude, I've already gotten immune to it, and it's only been like 2 months.
There's no way. But
My system
thing
is
is-
still different.
well, the other thing is you're probably not using it right. But like, do you take pill holidays? Like, is your hygiene good for it?
I don't take pill holidays, but my question.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is if you take like a week off right now, and then you started using it again after taking a week off, you would be like, "Wow, this is like when I first started." When you took it again.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But no, like the thing you should do is just like do something else during the day when you have the Adderall, and don't take it every day. And basically do something else that's productive that like would be smart. And then basically you can just come on Clubhouse like when you crash.
Yeah, but then I won't be my most Adderall self. That will be my most intelligent, fast-speaking, clear-thinking self, and then I'll like lose my debates. It'll be terrible.
No, but you won't if during the day you like read stuff and thought about stuff and just had a sharp mind. Over time, I think you're going to be way better off with respect to your Clubhouse debate mastery goals than if you just are like first order optimizing for Clubhouse debate.
Yeah.
They've statistically proven that going to the gym and exercising is 10 times more effective in treating depression than SSRIs. So, with regards to Adderall and doping the mind for peak performance or optimization or learning ingestion, I would just say that, like, if you practice abstinence and you do a break and then you come back to it, but like the point is exercise and education go hand in hand. If you want to increase your ingestion or your IQ, I mean, there is this body consciousness aspect to intelligence, which allows for greater comprehension, for productivity, for creation. If you've been to college and you've been through the rigor of class and essays and reading comprehension, all that stuff, I mean, exercise is the magic ingredient that makes your brain be that much faster in the same way that Adderall does it for you, because it's true, authentic dopamine versus the supplemental dopamine.
Yeah. Like ADHD was much less bad when I was like younger and more active and more. But I mean, it's hard to say like what the cause of the story is. But like, I went to college, got good grades. But like then I had this like rich wife for like 11 years, and then I like didn't need to have any sort of conscientiousness, and a lot of those skills withered, and also I got less healthy, and then like I just feel like both of those have like added themselves to make me like way less conscientious.
Yeah, but this is the universe. This is the universe doing this to you, meaning that all these things were meant to happen to you, that there's not a speck of dust out of place, that this whole, situation that you're in is your journey of self-exploration or discovery.
Ethan, I don't know if you guys want to talking about this. But like, I wanted to talk to Ethan about like yesterday's conversation on the aesthetic stuff. But if you want to continue about this,
I want to say one last thing before I finish
yeah.
about the like hypocrisy and the self. I think just like me just being aware of it and noticing, hey, I am being self-serving in what values I value, and that like temperance is important, and all these like other virtues are important that I don't have, and I shouldn't be so smug. Just like being like humble and not being so smug will just get me a long way. Even though
I mean, I don't know. I think the thing though for conscientiousness, if that's the thing you want to cultivate more value in, is like just watching a great craftsman and looking at the end result, and then hearing them talk about their process, basically regardless of what it is, but especially if it's something that you can really appreciate the value of, you know? Every time I see that, it makes me jealous, you know, that I'm not more conscientious like that person is.
Yeah. I'm not just talking about conscientiousness. Like, for example, I am very friendly, and if you need a place to crash, I'll let you crash, and I'll be very nice to you. But I won't think to get a person gifts when I'm like they're not around. I won't just like spontaneously be like, oh, Sully would love this, because like that's just like not one of the things I do, and like I don't value that I don't do that. And it's just like a whole bunch of a range of values or things that I don't do that I just don't value much. And there's a sense in which I want like to not be so. Oh, everyone is just so incurious and pussies, and they're disloyal and just feeling so arrogant about how everyone's worse than me. I'm like, yeah, fuck you, Sam. Like, you have so many things that you could be better at that you don't do. And I'm just trying to like figure out a way to just intelligently think about this. And I think just being humble and not being arrogant is probably just good, both for epistemic and also prudential reasons.
But I think it, like, my point generalizes beyond this context of conscientiousness, which is just like surrounding yourself with people that excel in the virtues that you lack is, I think, creates a better appreciation for those in you, you know? And similarly, like, surrounding yourself with people that like are like worse than you with respect to the virtues that you have to some measure, I think does kind of make you more complacent.
In terms of like your question as to whether or not you're putting your thumb on the scale and finding virtue in your natural proclivities, I'd say that you're maybe cynically characterizing what people are looking for in virtues. I think most things people characterize as virtues could be vices if reinterpreted. And like the point of the virtue is to give you a North Star, to direct your proclivities. If you happen to act in these certain ways, here's like the virtuous path for that. So it's not that you're just being self-serving. You're actually doing the moral job of saying, what do I do with the truth of what I am? Not what do I change myself into? How do I develop myself in a virtuous way?
Just in general, guys, do you think it's better to like sharpen your skills or like get rid of your weaknesses? Like, is it better to become like unbalanced and have like a small number of things you're really good at, or be like a sort of generalist? Just because it seems like in work, it seems good to be a specific person, but in virtue, I don't know. It seems not obvious to me.
I mean, mostly I say play to your strengths. I think that playing to your strengths is deferring to your natural state. Like you can acknowledge like your own failures, things that you would prefer if you did other, and like you can direct yourself a bit there. But the thing you're directing is like the life force, the part that feels natural and good. You start it and you grow it in the right direction.
Yeah, I think it's got to be like a middle way there, where it's like basically like you have to remedy your weaknesses to the extent that the weaknesses are pathological, you know? But to the extent that the weaknesses are just like functional and average but not exceptional, then like cultivate the strengths to the point where they're exceptional. You know, like if you're so, like for instance, take conscientiousness. Like you don't need to work on becoming like an exceptionally conscientious person if you can get to functional conscientiousness, you know? But if you're at the dysfunctional, like super ADHD level, then it will basically cripple you in realizing basically any other virtue until you've solved that problem.
Yeah.
I don't know how much time you spent studying the Sephiroth of Kabbalah, but I would say that those 10 Sephirotic traits of the divine are excellent starting points for establishing great emotional durability and strength. And they're just 10 simple Hebrew words or 10 simple words or concepts, but to me they're invaluable and they're very mystical.
Wait, so Ethan, is your view that I should take my weaknesses, get them to the point where they're just average, and then once I'm there, then just fully focus on my strengths? Is that the model of what you guys should be doing?
Yeah, I mean, basically, like, I think, like, you basically, with regards to weaknesses, like, you just have to plug holes in the ship, but you can just put Band-Aids on the holes, but you gotta make sure the ship doesn't sink. And then, basically, play to your strengths, as long as you got the ship afloat.
Yeah.
Or you could like leverage your strength to help you persist with development of the weak areas. So like one trait that I've been contemplating lately actually is forbearance. Which I intend to like look into more and think about more. But this is one that's been coming to mind as something really valuable. Yeah, so I'm thinking about which other traits I have that can help me in my pursuit of forbearance.
I know in Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, he says we either bear or we forbear. So, I mean, if you want to bear, that's like an active decision to essentially maintain the concept or the thought, to live with it. But if you forbear, it's kind of like letting go. And it's not easy to let go of thoughts, especially with neurotic thinking or chronic thinking. But there's methods to stop the chronic thinking. I mean, just going to the gym, it's unbelievable how much of a course correction that is for me in my personal life. Is after I get a workout in, my brain is operating at a much higher level of efficiency, activity, processing, action. It's unbelievable how you can manipulate the brain to manipulate actions.
So, Deepak, you wanted to ask Ethan something about aesthetics?
Yeah. Okay. I don't have much time left before like the kid person and wants something, but like maybe like 5-10 minutes. Like so I was actually listening yesterday, right? I even took some notes about things I wanted to bring up, but I can't read my notes. Horrible handwriting. But like, let me start by saying like I do think that like everything Ethan is talking about is stuff that I want to be true. Especially the aesthetic stuff, especially the stuff about like math, and stuff like that, having like like the aesthetic facts about math and science and so on being true. Partly because like I felt the kind of thing that he describes. I think, right, like the feeling of like this is so beautiful. How could it not be? I mean, this is not exactly how he described it, but like something similar, right? Like where it's like, this is so beautiful. Like, how could this not be part of some objective context structure about the world itself, or right? But like, I feel like I don't know. Like, I feel like maybe like we're fooling ourselves, when we do this. Like, even the quotes that you were like reading out by mathematicians, I think that's a very like it's heavy. It could be like heavy selection bias, right? Because obviously, like like mathematicians are like naturally going to be incentivized to like talk like eloquently about like all the beautiful stuff, right? And not like tell you all the yucky stuff and all the like boring calculations and stuff. Like there's actually a really good like three blue, one brown video about like two different ways of solving a particular problem, like something about like the shadow cast by a sphere or something. And there's like one like really beautiful, elegant one, and the other is just like this sort of straightforward like brute calculation. And he talks about how like both are necessary, because it turns out it's actually the second one that actually generalizes better. Like the first one only works because of some particular formulation of the problem. And then he talks about how like if you look at like the work of like the great mathematicians, right? They not only come up with all the beautiful stuff, they also do like pages and pages of calculation. There's like a screenshot of like Newton like doing like all this like like brute force stuff, like in order to get an answer when he needed to. So I think like that's one thing to think about. Like, we may be like selection biasing a little too heavily on the math side. But even like our notion, and the other thing also, like, I mean, I'll just say this one and then I'll stop. Like, even our like notions of beauty in math and stuff, like I feel like there's a bit of maybe like, I don't know what, like entrainment or something going on where mathematician, what happens is like, I think like with basic math, okay, we can all like immediately recognize beauty in it, right? Simplicity, beauty, and so on. But then what happens is like as you go into like the more advanced stuff, it's not obvious to me that like there is like a natural sort of beauty. Like the natural beauty comes about because as you get better at math, you kind of realize what works and what doesn't, what kind of algebraic structures kind of lead to the right answers. And you start thinking of those particular like forms as being beautiful, right? Because you're used to them giving an answer. Like I had a particular example in mind. Like there's how long it'll take me to describe. Okay, so there's this thing in I guess analysis called Bezout's theorem, right? Which seems like a really beautiful result, right? Like it's this idea that like if you have two curves each of degree like say d1 and d2, the number of points at which they intersect is d1 times d2, right? Which is such a beautiful result. Turns out that the only reason it's true is because we have to like redefine what intersection means, what curves mean, what even the plane, like, so you have to have like three things. You have to like have an extension of like the real numbers to the complex plane, right? So that like, all like, every equation is like, has like, what's the word? Well, like it's complete. It's a complete ordered field. You have to like extend the plane to include points at infinity, right, where curves can meet. It's called the projective plane, and then you have to do this other thing about like counting. You even have to count like like if two curves meet at a point, you sometimes have to count it like more than once. And each of these things are like sort of independently motivated, but it's only after you do all of these things you end up like suitably redefining these concepts so that you have this beautiful result. And it feels almost like, well, is that really in any objective sense beautiful? I don't know, like kind of, I don't know, maybe some scattered thoughts, but like curious what Ethan thinks or anybody.
Okay, well, so first, I would point out that basically this point that you're making about, okay, there's basically like technical calculation and like brute force results, that are required in mathematics. And like, I think no one can deny that, and that basically, but I think there's a few things that need to be said here. First, maybe to be a bit more didactic about it, it's like, what do you think the goal of pure math is, right? Because they're obviously not looking for stuff that's just instrumentally useful. That's not the regulative ideal of that field, right? So to the extent that they're doing these like behemoth technical results, why is it that they're interested in the particular results that they're interested in? Why is it that like we don't get like an automated theorem prover and just start randomly generating theorems and being like, behold, right? From sampling from those at random. What is it about the theorems that we're looking after that we find to be interesting, that we give people prizes for? What's the goal? So rather than focusing on the method, maybe we could start talking about the aim.
Yeah, I actually think, I don't entirely believe this, right? Because I also want to believe what you're saying. But the counterpoint is to just say that the real goal is utility, right?
But that's not the goal of pure mathematicians. This is the point where and that's the thing is, if you like every single time I talk to these people, especially the ones, and I've had the opportunity to talk to a few that are really good, very respected people, and without fail, in my experience, the thing that drives them is that it's an aesthetic experience for them, and they're obsessed with this because it's almost like they're addicted to a certain type of aesthetic pleasure that they get from it. And there's like a conviction that these people have, especially if you talk to the people that are more like in the Grothendieck camp, Mm-hmm. Like if you talk to people from that perspective, and I think he's just a paradigmatic example, Mm-hmm. The reason why what he did was recognized
you stopped.
Yeah, you're breaking up, bro.
Did you say the aesthetic is a meta aesthetic?
Ethan, you there, bro?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you got to... He's the paradigmatic example, and then you cut off.
He's the paradigmatic example of the mathematician where he would just come up with these like general structures that were just like with the way he would, the set of axioms that he would come up with, you'd be like, oh, those are the right axioms because they're sort of beautiful and they allow for all these like tidy, elegant proofs of all these other results that were otherwise, terribly ugly, and also didn't seem particularly related to each other. But it's just like a bunch of stuff where it's like, the vile conjecture.
Oh, the whale, yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah.
And basically, you wind up getting a ton of results like that, where it's just like you wind up these fields that people assumed had nothing to do with each other. It turns out there's all these like deep systematic connections.
Langlands, yeah.
But and that is like just it's such that I'm getting distracted and getting diverted. So let me stick to one point at a time. But so the first point was just if we go to these pure mathematicians and we ask them what it is that they're looking for, clearly the stuff that they give out the prizes for is not useful to anybody at the time they come up with it and at the time that they give the prizes. And it's only way later that anybody figures out what the use value was. And it wasn't like any of the criteria people were using was like, oh yeah, I bet this will be real useful.
You talked abruptly. I'm not sure if you're done.
What was it? You just heard? You heard?
Yeah. No.
No, just my point was the way people recognize, like whether someone has done good mathematics, and the way they give out the awards is based off of who has the most beautiful result.
Ethan,
I'm not.
Sorry, do you like one second? Ethan, have you seen the way to box 17 squares inside of another square? Have you ever seen this thing?
Well, Deepak's got to go in a second, so could we?
Yeah, you're right. Sorry.
Yeah. So look, I do actually find like what you're saying. Like I said at the beginning, I do find it persuasive, but I guess I'm just trying to make the skeptical sort of case. That,
yeah, but I'm saying and I think you're from a more practically minded field. Like your field, and you're doing it in a company, so you're the most practically minded of practically minded people. You've sold your soul.
I don't know if that matters though. I don't think that's why I'm doing this because I yearn for the kind of beauty that you talk about, right? I care about it so much. That's why I really want to be sure about this. But
that's the thing is it seems to me. So that's the first point, which is just one can't really understand the field of pure mathematics without understanding that the practical utility of it is sort of incidental. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing for the particle physicists. When they're justifying the Large Hadron Collider. Did you ever watch Particle Fever?
Yes.
The documentary. And you remember the quote where he's like, "We do this thing that's a little bit disingenuous, where we go to the public and we're like, we want to spend all this money on this big particle accelerator." Because, in our experience, when we discover new shit, some useful technology usually results. And we can't predict exactly what it'll be.
Absolutely.
But he's like, but that's not our motivation whatsoever for doing this. And really, what we're...
but that is two different things, right? Okay, look, I actually... again, this is not something I completely believe, but I think, I would push back on this idea that, utility is incidental, and what they're really doing is chasing, the most pure aesthetic kind of value. Because, again, I also, work with mathematicians, or I do work with, and, I've talked to them and stuff, and I think, a big part of the value function comes from, and in fact, even sometimes, I would say the definition of what is beautiful, right, comes from the fact that this was a useful way to some abstraction or generalization actually solves a concrete problem that couldn't be solved by more basic rudimentary techniques, right? What made Galois theory so beautiful, right, is it solves these questions that can be posed in such elementary terms, right? Same thing for Fermat's last theorem and elliptic curves and stuff like that.
No, but that's the thing is it's okay. Like that perfect example.
One thing, I actually
What do
think
I mean? Perfect example. Let's go to Andrew Wiles and be like, you know what? There are all these people. There are all these people that are Deepak's friends, and they're really going to
Let me just finish this one thing I want to make, because I think that might change your answer. Because like, I'm not saying that like when the really best or even the mediocre mathematicians engage in math, they're like driven by aesthetics. But I just think that's like incidental. That's like the sort of ride-along trait, right? That gets them to the utility. I do think like prizes often are usually awarded out because of utility rather than like some beautiful problem in an area.
That part is not true. So that's a part where I disagree with you. There are prizes, okay, in lots of fields that are handed out based on utility, right? But in mathematics, the people that are recognized as the truly great mathematicians, like, actually, you know what? Like, let me give you an example. Like, Terry Tao's work in number theory, for which he won like the Fields Medal, you know?
Mm-hmm.
What did anybody build using that? You know, how many babies didn't starve or whatever?
Right. Okay. I think that question is rhetorical. I understand your point, but I think that actually points to like I'm talking about a different kind of utility. Like, you know, it's a utility that only extends to within math, right? So maybe at the base of it all is like, you know, it doesn't extend further than like, can you use like this supposedly cool new result to prove something about like basic number theory, and then nobody cares if that number theory itself can be used for anything else. But that is like the sort of structure that I think determines aesthetic value for like higher levels of math, right? Like this is why, like, for example, many mathematicians actually consider many areas of category theory like abstract nonsense, right? Because the connection to like other areas of math is quite tenuous, you know?
But and that's the thing, is it's like there is a goal in mathematics, I would agree with you. That's unification and power, you know, are criteria by which we judge these results. But largely, not because those are related to instrumental utility, you know. Just, I think the program of mathematics is one where, like if you were interested in physics, just to take the analogy, if you were interested in physics for no other reason than aesthetics, which I take it to be the reason Ed Witten is really interested in physics. And like, if you were interested in it for no other reason than that, you had no engineering mind about you at all, what you would want there to be a grand unified theory, and someone proving a tiny little physics result that didn't connect with anything else about physics, you know, would like almost definitionally be a less significant result than one that basically like carved physics at its joints and connected to basically almost every area of physics and brought them all together and showed the connections between them and could be deployed to better understand this and better understand that, blah, 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 blah. You know? We're like this idea of unification and this like wide scope of applicability of the results, like that's also an aesthetic criteria, you know?
But I agree, but I feel like the skepticism I have is I feel like that the aesthetic criteria is sort of a ride-along trait, right? That allows us to reach like, you know, the thing that really everybody started out as valuing, which is like, you know, curiosity, right? Like Ed Witten, like if Ed Witten started out doing string theory, he probably found a lot of beauty in the equations themselves. But do you think he would have, if you had told him like back in the 80s, hey, you're going to discover all this like wonderful stuff about like, I don't know, M theory and heterotic blah, blah, blah. But turns out none of it actually is the way the world works. Like supersymmetry is false and stuff. I suspect I don't know Ed Witten, but like, you know, I think he would have probably tried to like find like a different theory, maybe less beautiful, but one that is more likely to actually describe the world. So I think Ed Witten's goal there is to like understand like, you know, the fundamental structure of the world, right? Which doesn't have any further utility in like ordinary, like mundane human terms.
But I think if you look at some of his quotes about this, the only reason he cares about understanding what the world is like and its fundamental structure, if it turned out that there was no more physics to be given than basically a botany, you know, where you just were creating this giant taxonomy of things, you know, he would have no interest in that field anymore. He might just go focus on mathematics for mathematics' own sake. But the reason why he cares so much about understanding what the world is like is partially because he has this conviction that the world is beautiful, and that the world is the tutor for him in beauty. That to the extent, like, and this is almost something that's like, this is like, there's also like a von Neumann quote about this that's kind of interesting, where it's just like, people who become way too insular and start focusing on stuff that's like completely detached from any empirical relevance. Like they're sort of getting trapped where they're chasing like the steepest gradient of beauty in the short term, you know, but they're going to get stuck in a rut, you know. And if they wanted to achieve the highest heights that they could, then they actually need the world as their tutor, and they need to be able to get feedback, you know. And a separate point that I would make, like, so you're just saying, like, look, this aesthetic beauty is just like a ride along, and then the reason we all really care is because this stuff is useful. Well, that's not the reason these people care, you know. And it's also not particularly the reason that we respect them, but it's also, you know, the reason why I have the respect that I do for Shakespeare has very little to do with how happy he made people. Even though that's how you might say, well, that's just his aesthetic merit is just a ride along for how much entertainment value he created. It's like, that's not really what I think the deeper values that we have are less the hedonistic ones, which are sort of subordinate values to the more aesthetic ones. So I think I might just disagree with you about what is utility ultimately. But like, second, the thing I wanted to point out is, you're making my argument for me with this ride-along thing. Because that's my point. If people weren't paying attention to what was likely to be true, they were paying attention to what was beautiful, and then at way, way more than chance, that turned out to be true. What the hell's with that? Why is chasing what's beautiful?
I was going to actually point that out. Like, you actually turned what I was saying around, because I guess my version of it was like, is the worry that, like, you know, we start out like with basic intuitions about what is beautiful, you know, from our like daily life, right? That we use to explore, you know, basic math and basic science, and then like we steadily attune ourselves to like, you know, where the equation seem to be taking us, right? So our notions of beauty, like we follow along those notions of beauty because, like, you know, we understand. Like, what am I trying to say? Yeah, I guess I'm just saying that, like, I don't know. I guess I'm just saying that, like, I'm looking at the cause. I'm worrying that the causation is the opposite, right? Than what you're saying, that like people, like, they're motivated, like the fact that like they are chasing beauty and then incidentally find truth, is a strong indication that like the beautiful is true, right? As like an objective truth to it. Because otherwise, like, there would be some giant coincidence. That's what you're saying, right? Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I suppose I really want to believe that, but I just worry that it's like your account of, like, you know, mathematicians and scientists, like psychology, could be entirely correct. Like they are chasing beauty, and they happen to find truth. But I guess then I have a job to explain, which is like, why did they happen to find truth if, like...
Well, and that's precisely my point, which is like, there's a separate thing, which is like, that we can all kind of agree on the rules for the game, right? Which is like, all of us have like especially the people who just have a refined taste because they're the practitioners of the field, all of them can agree on these rules for the game where if their goal is beauty, they can all like objectively rate each other, you know, along that dimension, you know, based on these sort of intellectual judgments that they share. So there's some concept there that shares a common, that doesn't diverge nearly as much if it was a whole bunch of arbitrary idiosyncrasies, those preferences, you know. But then a deeper point is just like, there seems to be this weird connection between, first, what's beautiful and what's true in mathematics. And then two, what's beautiful in mathematics and the mathematics the mathematics that most accurately describes our world. So there's sort of a double coincidence, right? That the mathematician starts with a mathematician like a Grothendieck starts with a working assumption, you know, basically mathematical truth is beautiful, and then basically can use that to know in what direction to point his efforts to then derive what's true in the context of mathematics. Then separately, once he derives those true mathematical claims and develops these mathematical structures to do so, bizarrely, they wind up being really, really useful to accurately describe empirical reality.
Yeah. I guess I don't. Okay, I guess I have to stop soon. But like, and I also don't want to just do the thing of I just repeat like what I started from, because I have heard everything you said. But okay, I'm going to repeat it just to see if like it's been addressed or not. Right? Like the worry I had, I guess, when I started was like if it's just the case that like our notions of beauty are just have been like either consciously or unconsciously like fine-tuned, right, towards what leads us to the truth, right? Like, isn't that a possibility, right? Like the reason Grothendieck, like, found a bunch of structures beautiful, investigated them, and then like discovered that they were true, or like whatever, like high utility, I guess, or describe maybe even like certain physical like theories.
Yeah. I get your point, and the point is basically like there's some basically this beauty like aesthetic schema that we have in our head. The reason that that in our head is because basically it grafts onto the world, in this way. So it's precisely because it's so useful at helping you discover, that which is true. That's precisely the reason. That's precisely the reason that we evolved to have the concept of beauty that we do. Now, basically, there's a whole bunch of reasons why I would be super skeptical about that as the explanation. At least that's an empirical hypothesis that we can scrutinize using empirical argument. So here's one line of attack against it, and there are many that can be offered. So first, the concept of beauty as pertains to mathematics. What opportunity did it have to be adaptively fine-tuned? So just tell me about that.
Yeah, it's quite implausible, especially when you think about stories like Ramanujam, who is just like almost divinely led to, in his own account, like, led by divine revelation to mathematical truths, right? Like deep mathematical truths.
Well, and we just wouldn't expect it to generalize as well as it does, even if it grafted onto what was true, basically in whatever context it evolved for. No, there's also no real evidence that really it was adaptively fine-tuned whatsoever. But even if it was, it definitely shouldn't generalize the way it does to where, and then there's another thing that's interesting about it, which is
like basically, what about evolution would give us the tools to like appreciate the beauty of like Dirac or whatever, like Dirichlet series and like data functions.
It seems like our entire ability to do pure mathematics, what the best theory we have right now is that it's basically like a spandrel of the language faculty. Basically we develop a general faculty for recursion, and then as like an incidental side benefit, you can do pure mathematics. And like it's sort of bizarre, like, and it almost looks like, and we can get into this sort of discussion here, but it's like it almost is like it is basically salutation. It's the best model we have of how this faculty emerges. Like it looks almost like a point mutation. So it doesn't look like this thing that was like refined and adaptively fine-tuned. But then basically like the second thing that's very interesting is like the entire idea, which is presupposed by induction, right, of naturalness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Basically, just to define any simplicity measure, you need to first specify like some kind of concept of naturalness that you can then use to judge, okay, these are the primitives, and then here's how complex the definition is using those primitives. Well, something that's a little bit, sorry.
You cut out, Ethan?
No,
So,
it's-
Deepak, I really want to jump in here if you're done after this
Yeah.
question. I would really like to jump in.
Oh, sure. I just wanted to. I don't know if the kid's here. What do you want?
Yo, Ethan, you there?
What's up?
One thing that I'm worried about in this is that if mathematicians.
Can I just say one point? Just one thing, and then I have to go. Yeah. So actually, I just want about what you were saying earlier. You cut off in the second thing you were saying, Ethan. But about the first one, right? The why would we believe that evolution, the point mutation, all that stuff. You know what? I mean, there's the pessimistic scenario, right? Which is that